for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap-ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues. Guess if you ain't at the table, you on the menu. And I'm that spitter, baby. They don't want you to see, but everybody's out the Capitol Hills rocking with me. Boys smoke the trays and plan to getting their life together. I'm comfortable with my role, so I'm like, whatever. Me, I ain't got a job, but I work hard. And you don't work hard, but you got a job. The irony is I'm judged while you feel the applause. I'm slept on, that's why I had to set this alarm. My dudes is armed, I'm armed with this arm charm. Body banging like she got that cream from Barry Bonds. Yeah,
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
X-ray season is here, a real hitter with a mic, I'm everything that they fear. With that, hood ain't the same, I was all on their ass, I'm level-headed. So yo, my dudes love when I spaz, and I'm so over Seattle's passive-aggressive attitude. They don't call you back, what they really saying is F you. While I'm from the same place, I move at a different pace. I prefer if you just said it to my face, damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Average dudes with they average spit, writing average rhymes, knocking average chicks. The closer I get, I can feel the people starting to shift. I'm loyal to a fault, and everybody can't come with. Rap's a rich man's game, I'm only playing with change. They bang models and singers, I'm knocking my own flame, I'm different. The crowd, I move with the chosen few. Black thoughts, I could be the front man for the roots. No diamonds and gold, I'm on my sticks and stones. If we can see your penny line, you should have on a thong. My team is strong, through this fire we forged a bond. And they already know what it is when I get on. To the hearse, party like it's December 31st. When I'm on my deathbed, I probably cracking my nurse. You ain't got the bars to compete, I'm a verbal athlete. Deflating these boys so they say that I cheat. Damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Yeah. I should probably start by apologizing for the long wait, man. You know, I know I be tripping. But I'm not just a rapper, I'm an artist. And, you know, my creative process is a little bit different than most. Nonetheless, I want to welcome everybody out to the Dre's Experience. I got TCF in the building. My whole camp's here with me. I got the band in here laying this cool-ass vibe. And I'm Seattle's own. Let's get into it.
I just want to live. God protect me. I just wanna live. I just wanna live.
Welcome everybody to the Morning Update Show. I am your co-host Trey Holiday, and it is a gorgeous Tuesday out there for all of us. And it's a gorgeous day and time right here at the MOHAI. Gotta bring in my co-host with the most, the guy, Big O, always on the scene, down to speak to the people. What's up, Big O?
Trey Holiday, what's happening, man?
Hey, man, happy Tuesday to you.
Man, it's, you know, I was going to say Thursday. It's
yet,
only Tuesday. Man, I guess I got the heat stroke for real. Man, welcome to MOHAI. Will you look at this?
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah, no, this is amazing. I'm actually going to have to get up out of my seat here in a second and take a walk around. Hey, I want to welcome everybody to the Morning Update Show and remind you that right now is the perfect opportunity for you to tag and share the stream. Go ahead and tag and share this stream right here with people who you feel would appreciate culturally relevant news and information emanating from right here in the Emerald City. Want to give a big shout out to our partners over at the South Seattle Emerald and KBCS 91.3 out at Bellevue College. Want to remind everybody that you can listen to the Morning Update Show anywhere that you find your favorite podcast. We're putting a link in the comments right now for StreamYard, but you can also go to Apple, iTunes, to Google, Spotify, and anywhere else that you download podcasts. Man, it's still Pride Month, and we're showing our pride here. I want to remind everybody. There's lots of reminders here. A great way to support Black-owned independent media while also looking good and showing your pride is to visit where we converge /shop and pick up one of these shirts right here. You see there in the photo. Alia D'Alessandro, Trey Holiday, and Omi. And so black, white, and pink, they're available right now. And of course, a reminder about the vaccine coming to you from our friends over at Public Health. If you are looking for the vaccine is there. And a lot of places we go right now, actually, Trey Holiday, you can, the pop-ups, you can get all three. You're like, which one do you want? You want Moderna, you want Pfizer, you want Johnson & Johnson, or whatever. So, we just want to make sure and reinforce the general public out there that if you want a vaccine is readily available. We put the link in the comments so you can find the closest location that you can get a vaccine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's out there. And I got to say, one of the things that I think we really are, excited about is the fact that it's there for people who want it, man. We live in a state and in a county and a city that really is making it available. So beautiful thing, because I know that it's not the same all across the country.
Yeah, no, for sure. And man, we got an exciting show for me. I know, exciting, museum, exciting. We got an exciting show for you here today, coming to you live from the Museum of History and Industry at South Lake Union. So these guys don't know, but we actually really just scheduled this show so we could actually be in some cool, in a cool place. You know what I'm saying? But luckily they bit and went along with it. But now we had planned this. It's been a pretty long and fruitful relationship with the Museum of History and Industry, and they got some incredible professionals over here that we're going to be talking to. We're going to be talking to Amy Bhatt, and who was one of the curators over here as far as putting everything together. Isabelle Heyward, and I'm sorry, Isabelle, we on such a personal level. I don't even know your title. That's the museum whisperer.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gonna say, because it was plenty of days and nights, even working in on this exhibit here, man, where it was some conversations where it was a lot of conversations. And she was like, it's going to be okay. Oh, we can do it. And then we've also got the executive director, Leonard Garfield, to be here. And we got TK from the Everyday March. And, and so it's pretty good over here. And director, if you could put the camera on Trey real quick, because I'm going to hop up out my seat. And we're going to put the big old cam over here, because I was on Twitter earlier. I got to see if Isabelle can work this out for me. I told people, you can go ahead and put this camera
there we
up.
Go.
I told her, I was like, man, I'm trying to get in the tow truck. and for people, I got a lot of followers on Twitter who might not necessarily be from Seattle. And if you were from Seattle back in the day, you remember Lincoln's towing the actual tow truck. And this used to be in the Seafair Parade. You catch the tow truck, and we'll just take some more glimpses here around MOHAI. This is the grand, what would you call this? Is the grand exhibit hall or something phenomenal like that? The atrium. Oh, and look, there goes the hydro right there. Who used to go to Stan Sayers pits and watch the hydro? You used to watch the hydros, Trey?
Oh, yeah. Come on. That's a part of our childhood, man, our upbringing.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's amazing here in the Museum of History and Industry. Let me go ahead and sit back down.
And let me just say,
hey,
too.
Look, it's Trey.
Hey. I just want to say, too, man, shout out to Isabelle, man. I appreciate, because I was able to work on some things here with the museum. And you're right, the relationships run deep, and it's a beautiful thing. And I'm just so glad, that Converge is able to build these solid relationships. We talk about being relational all the time, and MOHAI has really shown us what that means from their perspective. So it's great to be in great relationship with these guys, man.
Oh, and I have to give a big shout out, too, before we move forward. So you've seen her here on the show before, Feel Good Friday. I have my elementary school teacher, Barbara Nilsson, because we made an open call. We said, if anybody wants to come down, come down. And imagine that 4 decades later, you know what I'm saying? That's the impact, and that's
four, not 5, huh?
Hey, come on, man, quit playing. I'm going to have to shave off this gray hair. I'm still young out here in these streets. But, I tell people all the time, because, and I won't, don't worry, there's no rant coming. But a lot of times we talk about the educational gap and the issues here in the city of Seattle. And we talk about, a lot of times the policymakers and everything else. And we forget about the teachers, and most importantly, we forget to acknowledge the teachers who actually just show up every day and they're giving their very best effort. And I'm definitely a beneficiary of the effort, the intentional effort, and the seeds that were planted by Barbara Nilsson so many years ago as a small kid. Man, she's the one who got me right. I had a lot of pent-up energy, for lack of better words. And she was like, man, you could write, you could do this, you could do that. And, all these decades later, that she's still in my life and still influential, and actually came down here today to watch the show.
There is something really special about the teacher-student relationship, and so many of us out there have really benefited from exactly what O is talking about. And what I love, O, is seeing it happen intergenerationally, right? Because now as a parent, I'm watching it happen with my sons and how my sons are being impacted by specific teachers in their lives. And it's just a beautiful thing, because it really does take the spirit, the love, and the heart of so many of our teachers out there to really push these kids to their limit, push them to the maximum, and really show them what they're capable of. I just love that.
Yeah, and speaking about intergenerational, Omi's here. Omi is back, and he's part of the Morning Update show crew, and Omi and Barbara Nilsson upstairs watching the exhibit. So, all right, so here's what we're going to do. We got a short video to play for you to actually director. There's a link down there that you'll see that actually says video. It's on the bottom there, and we'll put this link in the comments. There's a 20-minute full video that is out. We had a great session here with Enrique Cerna. Interviewed a lot of the people that you'll actually see here on the show today, Amy and Leonard, Garfield, and TK and myself. And that full version is in the comments right now. And the whole point of that video is for people to come down. And, this exhibit, Stand Up Seattle, the Democracy Project, is here until July 5th. So, we want you to get a ticket. But we have the short version, because we couldn't play a 20-minute version during the show. We actually have the Converge cut of that. People really like this version. Yeah. And so we're going to go ahead and play that, and we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll be sitting with Amy.
America is a work in progress, and if we don't work, it won't progress. We need to understand, be very clear, that a democracy only works when we work. Everybody has a job to do. We're all stakeholders in this society. Our share is the vote, and we need to take our role as shareholders in this country very seriously.
I think this is an exhibit that really hits people at a personal level. What I learned from this exhibit, and I had to learn it, it wasn't intuitive to me, is that democracy is an unfinished project. Now is the time, I think, for us to remind ourselves that this is a project, we are a part of it, and its success ultimately depends on us. And it requires all of us to be a part of it. It has been, at best, a partial success, and it has a whole lot of failures that we can correct, that we must correct. And to me, the exhibit was revelatory of that.
My entire life, I've always believed that actions speak louder than words. You gotta walk the walk now. Now it's time to go walk, bro. You talked enough, now let's go walk it. What if the city stood up like this for itself? How much change could we affect here? How much change can we get done here if we come out and stand up like this for where we live?
Democracy is everything to me. I think that the United States has that open system. I mean, I've visited other countries. I've been outside of the United States, and I've seen it in other ways and forms. And still here in the United States, we have probably one of the best forms of democracy, though it's really hard for us sometimes, and particularly now.
Being in a museum and a repository of history, I think that it's important that people in Seattle realize that the Seattle protest is a chapter in a very long book here in Seattle and in the state of Washington for people standing up. And we're living this chapter right now. So we feel it. It's emotional. It's intense. I'm still living with injuries from the protest.
You can tell me that you believe in me and that you're here for my life. Show me. Show me. What we did was we would march every single day to different parts of Seattle, go to council members' houses, talking to them, getting them to engage with the community that is most impacted by systematic racism.
Democracy is best when we challenge it. When it's under attack, it actually gets stronger. All the protests we saw this summer, all the protests that you read about in this exhibit that go back hundreds of years, they have made democracy live up to its promise. Imperfectly, of course, but there would be no progress without those challenges.
We can't let people forget what happened in Seattle. And I hope that it emboldens those out there younger than us to be prepared to write that next chapter. Because this story, this saga called democracy is continuously being written daily. And I hope that what our city went through last year will inspire people to pick up that pen and continue to write the next chapter of democracy in our city.
We can look at action from sitting down and writing a letter, talking to your neighbor, to being out on the street, with the protest sign, pushing back. So there are all sorts of ways to join this democracy and this effort.
Being able to have that many dialogues with that many council members on the city level, on the county level, it was like, yo, you really can do this. We really can do this. Like, this is a real thing that can happen. Somebody has to stand up for what we're living in. We have the power to change this city, and all it takes is somebody inspiring somebody else to do it. And this is who I gotta be. Whether I like it or not, this is who I have to be in order to ensure that my brothers grow up and die from natural causes, not the police.
We, the people, the citizen stakeholders of this city, this county, and this state, we have to reclaim our power. We have to reclaim our authority. And our chapter is long, our book is long. Our history for standing up is long. Our history of getting beat down is long. But you know what? In the fight for democracy is very much like that phoenix that continues to rise from the ashes. And if there's anything that I want people to take away is study this museum, study these movements, study things that occurred, study advances, and then see what happened when people took their foot off the gas.
Oh my gosh, so beautiful. Every time we watch that clip and we play that clip, I remember the first time seeing it and just getting so emotional, because what you said at the end there about taking our foot off the gas is literally a part of my ethos every single day, Big O. It's why I'm always encouraging people to jump in. This is a movement for all of us, man, and you're just absolutely right there. You encapsulated it perfectly, my friend.
Right. One of the things here, and we'll talk to Amy about this a little bit more, is when you come here to the Stand Up Democracy or Stand Up Seattle exhibit, the Democracy Project, then you see that, like, Seattle really, it has a long timeline of people just standing up, and across all different categories. And whether it's labor rights, whether it's women's rights, whether it's, civil rights, when you look at the history here, and then you realize that, man, we're just in this moment. We're in this chapter, like I said there in the video, in this long book. And one way to really be able to appreciate that is to come here to MOHAI and to look at this exhibit and get a full understanding. Like, one of the things that I learned here was that, we all know about George Washington Carver. George Washington Bush, yeah. Who was the founder of Centralia. But little people know, when I found out here, that his son was actually part of the first legislature and one of the founders of Washington State University. Yeah. So there you go. I had no idea there was a black man in the first legislature here, the founder of Washington State University. It's so much history that's here. We're going to go to our MOHAI cam. And the MOHAI cam right now, they're showing actually this area that you're looking at right here. This is the area where we're in. This converges in. You come down here, and it's actually about a 5-minute video, and big shout out to Nikki Barron, who actually, it was a bet. I didn't envy her, Nikki's job in putting it together. She spent a lot of time and hours putting it together, and lucky for me, I just had to do the voiceover. But Nikki put together a video there that kind of talks about the protests and everything else. And it's a lot of history there of people standing up in our community and issues of standing up against police violence. And so, yeah, that's the MOHAI cam they're looking at right now.
Well, you know what I was just saying a little bit in terms of talking to some of the MOHAI staff, how important this work is when we're really talking about cementing parts of our history and making sure that people are educating themselves. I mean, so much is encapsulated in what we have experienced in the past. And we always talk about Sankofa, right? In community, in Black community, we talk about the Sankofa bird, how it really inspires us to always look back in order to know how to move forward. And, you know, honestly, you know, when I was younger, I was not a fan of history, right? And maybe it was because I felt like, am I getting the full history? But it's so important to be able to have a museum like MOHAI that really is trying to do it right and is making sure that that history is put here for people to see in such a beautiful way. Oh.
Yeah, and speaking of history, you know, they worked closely on this with Stephanie Johnson Tolliver from the Black Heritage Society of the State of Washington. We're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, we're sitting with Amy Bhatt. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. And right now, I stand corrected. We're joined by Dr. Bhatt. I was, we real casual around here. I'm like, yeah, we're joined by the homie Amy. You know what I'm saying?
I prefer that.
Dr. Bhatt, welcome to the Morning Update Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's good to have you here. All right, so let's jump into it. You can tell us what you do in general, and then also how that translated here into the Stand Up Seattle exhibit.
So I am a professor. I'm a writer. I'm a parent. I lived in Seattle for a number of years, and then have worked in other places in other cities, including Baltimore. So I came back to Seattle in 2019 and was invited to work on this exhibit as well as a few others here at the MOHAI. And I was incredibly excited about working on this project because I come from a background of feminist studies. I have an undergraduate degree in political science. I've worked in public policy. I've been a professor. And it was a really great chance to kind of pull all of those threads of my life together and to really think about how to create a project, an exhibit that would help us think about what was happening in our world in real time, but also at the time we were planning for the elections. So this exhibit has really kind of changed over time, but in part it was a chance to really think about what was happening as we're gearing up for what was a pretty big, pretty monumentous election.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you talk about that, there's got to be a lot of things that are also inspiring you as you're thinking about all of that in terms of this exhibit in particular. What were some of the real standout things for you that helped carry you forward in terms of curating such an amazing exhibit?
Absolutely. So we knew that we didn't want we knew that we didn't want to just tell a story about voting, right? Or that kind of traditional story about democracy, in part because American democracy has never been as inclusive as it purports to be, right? So the story about American democracy is much more complicated, and it's messy, and it's also something that's been built on exclusion. And so when we began to imagine how we would tell a story about democracy here in Seattle, we knew we needed to start with those exclusions. We needed to think about whose stories were not being told, and how do we bring those to the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, I think, we talk about this all the time, in terms of just marginalized voices, and how important it is that there's opportunities to exemplify and amplify those voices. When I think about some of the things that are actually captured in the exhibit, I think about that very thing, that there was this collective voice happening all at the same time. People were coming out of their homes. They were taking their stake back in this country, as I always use what Big O said in terms of, we can't just be pacifist here. We can't, be apathetic, right? We have to be a part of it. And that's really what you guys were able to showcase, right?
I mean, that's the hope, right? Is that we wanted to be able to show that there's multiple ways to participate in democracy, and that even if one of those avenues doesn't feel comfortable to you, there's other ways in which your voice can be made loud, it can be amplified, it can help amplify others' voices as well, whose stories often can't be told. As an educator, I've found that these conversations often happen in the classroom, and people don't realize that they need to go beyond, right? They need to be taken to the street. They need to go into your family. They need to go into thinking about the dinner table. How are you becoming an active citizen? It doesn't just end with your high school civics classes.
Right. You started working on this exhibit before the Seattle protests, right?
Absolutely.
So how did seeing the Seattle protests play out in real life impact you, especially when you're working and curating all this historical information about how protests have been so impactful in Seattle?
So, we were supposed to have launched this exhibit almost a year before it actually ended up going, actually longer than that. I'm sure Isabelle can correct me on the timeline. But two big things happened, right? So COVID happened, which meant that what was supposed to be an in-person experience, all of a sudden we had to quickly shift towards thinking about a virtual experience, trying to keep these themes and topics going. Then that conversation was starting to happen in March. And then we hit June, right? We hit what was happening here in Seattle, what was happening across the country. And it really became clear that the stories that we had laid out were really important for setting the groundwork, but we really needed to bring a very contemporary perspective to what was happening here in Seattle, how it was related to these older histories of protest and organizing, but also what was going on right now in our backyard. And literally here at MOHAI, it was in our backyard, right? We're talking about Capitol Hill, we're talking about downtown. These were, we as a staff also knew that these were monumental stories that we needed to try to capture even as they were happening in real time.
Yeah.
Yeah. One last question for you, from me, is that you mentioned that you're an educator as one of your roles. What about this exhibit were you educated on?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I think for me, I think we know that we've got this long history of activism in this region, but how driven that activism has been by the minority voices, the voices that are marginalized, that are excluded by the kind of mainstream narratives about how democracy, how our government, what even America is and means, how those things have been defined. And when you start to actually look at the history here, it's way more complicated. It's way more layered. It's also these stories of individuals working in communities or working collectively to change their conditions. So, one piece that I learned so much about was the fight for Native rights in this area. Thinking about how important those fights were for laying the groundwork, even for our contemporary environmentalist movements today. Thinking about the links between what's happening around policing and immigration reform. So for me, I think the exhibit also helped me think differently about how some of these community fights or these community objectives align to actually create what is a very unique story here in Seattle about how we approach organizing and activism.
You know, as you talk about the uniqueness of Seattle, I'm just reminded about how really Washington State is leading the nation right now in terms of some of the legislation that just passed in this past legislative session, right? And we understand that it is such a collective approach to get to that place. When we're talking about not only having people out on the streets protesting, but that all of that momentum and that energy got moved into real advocacy and to actually change and shift policy and legislation. What parts of that for you really maybe inspired you or maybe are captured in this exhibit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, when we conceptualized the exhibit, we really thought about it in terms of 3 threads. So the first thread being voting, what you actually do with your ballot, what you do as with your right as a citizen of the United States. We also thought about what happens on the ballot, right? So who is being elected to represent us? How are initiatives, which are also very, you know, specific to Washington State, referendums and initiatives, how are those shaping our policy landscape and our day-to-day landscape? And then the third piece really to that, if you think of it as a triangle, is that protest, resistance, and organizing. And in some ways, you need to have a balance between all 3. You need to make sure that folks understand that all 3 components are vital to a vibrant and changing and evolving democracy. So I think for me, you know, we wanted to really capture exactly that synergy between all of those pieces when we talk about democracy. It doesn't start and end with voting, right? In some ways, democracy is it's the beginning. It begins with voting.
Wow. Yeah, well, as a lot of Americans have had their vote suppressed from day one, and they can tell you that for them it don't begin or end with voting.
That's right.
All right, but before we let you go, maybe you can tell everybody why should they make it down here before July 5th?
Yeah, you know, I think that this exhibit really, it brings home a story that's very local, but that is having national impact, right? What happened in Seattle last summer is not shaping just the conversation here in Washington State. We've seen great legislative reforms, but it's not enough. And it's also a moment to kind of reflect on what Seattle means to the rest of the country. So I'm coming from Baltimore, right? I was there during the uprising with Freddie Gray and trying to think about the impact that had on conversations around policing nationally. In that way, Seattle's protests and its own uprising here, I think, is having an impact that goes well beyond Washington State. So I think it's important to kind of think about what's happening at the local level, and I want folks to come and experience that history, that this is our history, and that history is making a really big impact in how we're thinking about these things at a much broader and bigger scale.
All right, Dr. Bhatt.
Dr. Bhatt,
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
oh no, you don't go anywhere yet. We got to go to commercial break first. All right, when we return, we're going to be joined by Isabelle Heyward. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media. Hey everybody, we all know that COVID-19 has had a major impact on everything this year, even energy bills. Puget Sound Energy understands the ongoing struggle that's facing its customers. And this is why they're offering a COVID bill assistance program of up to $2,500 per qualified customer. If you or anyone you know are currently behind on energy bills, please contact PSC today to discuss all of the assistance options available. Visit psc.com/COVID to learn more.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. And right now, we're joined by Isabelle Heyward, exhibits manager here at the Museum of History and Industry. Welcome to the Morning Update Show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, so first of all, what's an exhibits manager do?
Well, I think it varies place to place. Here at MOHAI, I'm part of an exhibits team that kind of figures out like what stories we tell in an exhibit and how we tell them. So that involves kind of figuring out who to work with, like people like Amy and you guys, and really kind of like reaching out and working with community partners to kind of figure out how to tell stories and like what to display. So kind of managing that.
All right, that's interesting then, because you're actually the first person who contacted me, and you know, I tell it was always good conversation, but it took a minute to but you know, I mean, I think I was honest in that first conversation. You had called me, and we're still up there on the hill, and I remember sitting there at Rancho Bravo, and you were talking about MOHAI and this and that, and I was just like, man, this is a lot right now. You know what I'm saying? We were just going through a lot. But what made you want to reach out to Converge? And then also the Africatown Community Land Trust I see is in there, and Triana Holiday's up there on the wall as well in the exhibit.
Totally. So part of that has to do with, again, kind of working with our community partners. So the Black Heritage Society of Washington State, Stephanie Johnson-Talver is one of MOHAI's partners. And so we kind of looked to Stephanie, and she kind of guided us in your direction. And I think also just kind of looking and seeing what's happening around Seattle. I mean, it's hard, you know, Africatown Community Land Trust, that's, you know, a big effort, you know, and I think it's just really kind of indicative of the really strong community organizing that's happening in this region.
Yeah, I mean, with that, you know, we were just talking about how Seattle has its own characteristics, right? And maybe it's throughout King County, just characteristics of, you know, hey, we got to stand up. You know, you guys chose a great name for the exhibit. What are some of the things that really allowed you to kind of be guided through it outside of community connection to say, this is what we need to be doing right now?
Yeah, so coming back to my job, definitely it's working with people like Amy and others who kind of like help to guide the direction for our narrative. So kind of figuring out like what are the things that we want people to kind of come away with. For this project in particular, we knew that we wanted it to kind of feel like a democracy toolkit. So for people to come into the exhibit and be able to kind of leave knowing how they can participate in democracy in just a variety of different ways. So we look at kind of strengths in our collection, and then also what we're hearing from community partners to kind of let us know what points to hit.
That really kind of brings me to my next question, because I still see it up there, Seattle Journey, right? And that's how you and I really connected, was on another exhibit, really kind of showcasing so much of Seattle's history. And I was blown away at how it went from like the beginning and tried to go through. But, you know, for me, it's like, wow, that was probably a huge undertaking. And you were just sharing with me how important it was to get all the feedback you guys received in order to then make the changes you need. So is that part of what you guys do for every exhibit in terms of gathering that feedback from community and then being able to kind of shift and change and maybe pivot or amplify other parts that are maybe not there?
Exactly. So for every project, we work with community members to understand how kind of, you know, what the message is that we should be hitting on. It just kind of varies in degrees. So with the Stand Up Seattle project that started as a Smithsonian traveling exhibit that kind of fell through because of pandemic, but it kind of gave us the opportunity to then like work with so many different community partners to kind of direct that. And with the project that you and I connected on, kind of the refresh of our core exhibit, gosh, yeah, like everything that we're doing is kind of based on community feedback, which really like holds us accountable to the needs of the surrounding community and kind of like helps us check in and make sure that we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that MOHAI's always had like a good reputation in our community, in our neighborhood. I think because of the intentionality and the intentionality to tell the whole story and to be inclusive, because other people have been intentional as well to exclude us. But the intentionality here, and it's real interesting, not only in this exhibit, but some of the other exhibits there. Like I was looking at Seattle during World War II, and you see that they're showing like the shipyards being built and the ramp up for the war effort. But then right on the other side of the aisle, it shows the internment of our Japanese brothers and sisters and everything else. And, on the Morning Update show, we always talk about how it's important to tell the whole story because it's our history. My mama always says, here's another mama says, my mama always says that forgiveness is giving up all hope on a better past. Like we can never have a better past. We just have to own it. We have to accept it. And most importantly, we have to be able to tell the truth about it so we can resolve and move forward. How important is it here at MOHAI? I know you kind of touched on it there with Trayana, but how important is it for you guys to try to tell the best whole story that you can?
I mean, I think that's just at the core of what we do. So, that influences all departments across MOHAI. Trying to tell the best story and make sure that, experiences and histories across this region are represented in what we do. I would say it's foundational.
Yeah, foundational. One of my last questions really for you, Isabelle, is, about you. What made you say, I need to be an exhibits manager and I'm going to plant my roots here at MOHAI? Personally for you, because I find that for every place we end up, there is a pathway that got us there that's so unique to your lived experience. So just asking you about you, what made you hunker in and do this work?
I think I'm just personally and professionally really interested in how people connect with each other. And so the kind of driving idea for me is helping people, including myself, understand how to connect to each other in the world around us. And that's really kind of what led me to working in museums. And for a long time, I worked in natural history museums, and I've been at MOHAI for, maybe 4 or 5 years. But definitely, I think in a local history museum, it's, helping people feel connected to each other in their past. And, we need to kind of know what's come before us to kind of have that basis for understanding of what's happening now and creating empathy for just the people that we see when we walk down the street. So really, it's centered in creating empathy.
Beautiful.
All right. Isabelle, Heyward, and I'll tell you this before I let you go. Man, I appreciate your persistence, and I appreciate. I'll be honest with you. The first few phone calls, it was really just me, probably just venting, and it had nothing to do with MOHAI. It was just you were a listening ear. You know what I'm saying? And I should remember, just like it was yesterday. I sit there and I walk over to Rancho Bravo, and I sit there and I talk to you on the phone, and the impacts. We still deal with a lot of the thought process and things around CHOP, but the impacts of everything that had happened, it was just hitting me at the same time that we were talking. And I remember I'd probably try to hang up the phone and I'd be like, man, we talked for an hour. Maybe she said like 2 minutes worth of stuff. And so, but thanks for going through that process, and you know what I'm saying, and thanks for bearing with me and everything else. And look where we ended up, right here in MOHAI.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
We're
you.
going to take a break right now. When we come back, we're talking to the executive director, Leonard Garfield. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
Hey, it's Jake from Converge Media and Get the F Outside. I hope that all of you are taking advantage of the ability to be outdoors and enjoy nature as our summer months heat up. One other thing that you can take advantage of here in the King County area are free COVID-19 vaccinations. There's all kinds of options for pop-up clinics, and the vaccine is able to be administered to anyone 12 years and older. And did I mention that it's free? You don't need insurance, and they don't care what your citizenship status is. And that kind of sounds like the way things should be anyhow, but we'll save that for another conversation. Information and resources are available at kingcounty.gov/COVID, or you can call the COVID-19 call center at 206-477-3977. Washington, we are almost out of this, but we got to stay locked in for the home stretch. Let's get vaxxed out so we can max out our time with friends, family, and in the great outdoors.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. And you see, that's the merch ad right there. I got to talk to Jake Gravbrot, see how we can update it to show all of our other merch that's in there. It's a great way to support Black-owned independent media. And you know, we got the tank tops coming out too. You know what I'm saying? So you might find me on set next week in our Converge.
Guns out.
Guns out. And our Converge tank tops. But you can go to whereweconverge.com/shop, and we would definitely appreciate it. Joined now by Leonard Garfield, Executive Director, Museum of History and Industry. Welcome to the Morning Update Show.
Hey, Omar, it's good to see you.
Welcome.
Hey, Trey, good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
It's like you're coming back home.
Yeah, and it feels like home over here at MOHAI. So, man, let's jump into it. First, we'll talk a little bit about your role, and Executive Director, and then also we'll jump into the exhibit. So, what are your responsibilities here as Executive Director of MOHAI?
Yeah, well, I'm the guy who helps represent the museum to the community, helps oversee our larger programs, make sure that we're serving the community well, that we're sustainable, we're staying strong, we're listening to what the community wants, and we're delivering on that.
Yeah, that's a serious job.
Yeah. Hey, so listen, this is how you know that Leonard Garfield actually gets it done. Because he said everything in like one sentence. You ever meet somebody, it's like, oh, what do you do? Well, actually, I'm this, and that, and blah, 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 blah. He was like, yeah, just make sure everything's cool. So, man, this Stand Up Seattle, the Democracy Project, one, tell us about it more.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about some of the things that you took away from it.
Yeah. Well, this exhibit actually began at the Smithsonian. And we had an opportunity to show an exhibit from the Smithsonian from a national perspective on democracy. But, truthfully, it was the story of democracy told from up high. It was sort of the things you expect to hear. And when that show could not travel because of the pandemic, we decided to keep the theme, but to look at history from the ground up. Because democracy has been a project in Seattle, and it's been a tough project, and it's taken a lot of work and a lot of struggle, and that's the story we wanted to share. So that's the exhibit we have. It's a grassroots exhibit in a lot of ways. It's a community connection in a lot of ways, but in that sense, it's authentic history. It's not something we're being told. It's a story we're sharing.
Yeah, I really like how that says a lot right there. You heard that, right, Trey?
Oh, yeah.
It's not a story we're being told.
It's
right?
a story we're sharing.
It's a story that we're sharing. Yeah. What were some of the things about this exhibit that jumped out to you, or maybe some things that you learned or didn't know?
Well, Omari, when I was asked that question by Converge Media before, I realized that I learned much more from this exhibit than a typical exhibit. I mean, I think, as Americans, we think we know what democracy is about. We, for most of us are registered to vote, and we kind of follow it a little bit. But I think what we don't realize is that democracy is really about a system that is aspirational. And unless we challenge it, unless we push against it, unless we really try to walk into those aspirations, it's not going anywhere. And what I realized from this exhibit is that a hell of a lot of Seattleites walked into it under fire, threatened, took their lives in their hands, and they made progress. And that's something we saw as recently as, the history we're living through now. But what I really learned was that's a story that was from truthfully thousands of years, but especially hundreds of years since the community that we now know as Seattle began to take shape.
You're absolutely right about that. And I think, too, that it's really important for us to be able to understand democracy isn't a fixed thing. It has so many different variables, and it is constantly progressing. So what you're talking about there is that aspirational, and I love you saying that, because even as a person who works in community organizing and organizing marches and protests and all of that, it's important for folks to understand that, hey, just because things have always moved in that way doesn't mean they always will. Right?
And you know, Trey, and just because we achieve something now doesn't mean that we can give up, because it can be taken away tomorrow. And that's another lesson from Stand Up Seattle, is that history is something we have to keep holding on to. Democracy is something we have to keep holding on to, because the history has not been a straight upward trajectory. It's been a rocky road, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, that democracy is a work in progress, and if we don't work, it won't progress for as a whole, as a society, but it's especially for individual groups. If you have to work at this, and you have to, a lot of people, I forget what they're called now, strict interpretalist or whatever, of like the Constitution. Constitution said this, Constitution said that, Constitution, whatever. Then you got another group of people who are like, the Constitution is a living and breathing document, the Declaration of Independence and all these kind of things. And especially if you're of that mindset that this is a living and breathing document, that it's important that, like, we work at this. You can't phone in democracy. You know what I'm saying? There's no sick day on being able to push these things forward. What is it that you want people to take away from visiting Stand Up Seattle?
Well, I think it's what you said, Omari. It's incumbent upon all of us to actually make democracy come alive. It's hard work. It's daily work. We can't give up. And we won't give up if we follow the history of Seattle, because there are a lot of courageous people who never gave up. We're on their shoulders. We have to carry that forward. I want people to take away that commitment.
Beautiful. With that in mind, I mean, the exhibit's been open for a while now, closing this coming Monday. What are some of the things maybe that you guys have heard, some of the feedback as people have experienced the exhibit? Maybe there's some great, things that people were like, man, going through it, and kind of sharing that with you all to understand the impact it had on them.
Yeah. One of the things that's impressed me is how many people saw their own story reflected. Wow. Either a story of their family, of their community, or their own personal story. They were out in the streets just months ago, and they saw that reflected. And I think the other thing we heard was that people were inspired by those stories. They were willing now to maybe step up themselves. You can't wait for someone to do it, right? You can't wait for the Smithsonian to come by and tell you about democracy. You have to figure out what it is and then share it with people. And that is really the lesson that we're trying to share and that we hope people take away.
Amazing.
Wow, Leonard Garfield. I mean, one thing I could say is that Leonard Garfield is, man, it's real. Like when we shot this stuff, when we shot the video, and it was a great opportunity, Madam Director, to put that video link back in the comments. When we shot the full length video, he was so succinct. His interview was the shortest of everybody, because in like 5.5 minutes, he just hit everything. And it's not because it's rehearsed or polished, it's because it's sincere.
Yeah. Well, can I just say quickly, Omar, thank you, Converge Media, for being in our community, for the work you do, and especially for partnering with MOHAI. You've made this project succeed, and we're really appreciative. So thank you.
Wow.
It's an honor.
See,
honor
Converge
to be a part
impact
of it.
out there. It's amazing.
The Converge impact. Love it.
There it is. We're going to take a quick break right now when we will be joined by TK of the Everyday March. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
Hey, everybody. We all know that COVID-19 has had a major impact on everything this year, even energy bills. Puget Sound Energy understands the ongoing struggle that's facing its customers. And this is why they're offering a COVID bill assistance program of up to $2,500 per qualified customer. If you or anyone you know are currently behind on energy bills, please contact PSC today to discuss all of the assistance options available. Visit psc.com/COVID to learn more.
Hey, it's Jake from Converge Media and Get the F Outside. I hope that all of you are taking advantage of the ability to be outdoors and enjoy nature as our summer months heat up. One other thing that you can take advantage of here in the King County area are free COVID-19 vaccinations. There's all kinds of options for pop-up clinics, and the vaccine is able to be administered to anyone 12 years and older. And did I mention that it's free? You don't need insurance, and they don't care what your citizenship status is. And that kind of sounds like the way things should be anyhow, but we'll save that for another conversation. Information and resources are available at kingcounty.gov/COVID, or you can call the COVID-19 call center at 206-477-3977. Washington, we are almost out of this, but we got to stay locked in for the home stretch. Let's get vaxxed out so we can max out our time with friends, family, and in the great outdoors.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday, and so excited to have our next guest joining us right here at the MOHAI on set, TK.
What's up, y'all?
What up, TK?
How y'all doing today?
You know what I'm saying? Happy you could be here with us.
I'm happy to be here, too. It's like my second time in this building, man, and it's still, like, breathtaking. I still don't believe I'm still sitting here, but we here.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure. Well, my first question really to you is, we've been talking a bit about the impact, right? And when you're out there, as you were, really helping to lead the march, this everyday marchers, and bring the message and the opportunity for people to participate in what we've been talking about in terms of democracy, how has it impacted you? Because you were so impactful to others.
Wow, that's a good question, honestly, because it opened my mind up to different ideas. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, before I wouldn't have, like, when I was younger and a few years ago, like, I didn't really take an interest in politics, and like I was always aware of it, but I never really took an interest. And ever since the last year and the protests and being out there in the streets, you don't really see the impact because you're out there doing it. So you don't really see it for real until after the fact. And so, like, kind of being hanging back a little bit, it's like, dang, we really made an impact. And it's like, me personally, I see stuff and it be like, nah, that's not how that's supposed to work now. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not how that's supposed to work now. So it's like, now I'm on it faster. Like, when I see stuff and be like, nah, that's not how that goes now. It should be like this or like that. I take a little more interest in politics and the things around me and what's going on around me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. 1 year later, actually right now, the protests were still going on 1 year ago. Actually, CHOP was still in CHOP. CHOP got cleared July 1st. But when you look back 1 year, like, what's the personal impact on it? It's a lot of times people, they talk about even like Converge in the coverage of protests, but Converge's coverage of the protests and how it impacted Converge and how it impacted Omari Salisbury is two different things.
Right.
What was the impact of these protests to you?
Bro, it was a lot, man. Like, it gave me some PTSD, I ain't even gonna lie, man. And just like getting the wins and then the losses and going through so much tragedy and just like, I ain't gonna lie, man, it took its toll on me. Like, the impact it's had on me has made me realize like how precious life really is. Like, and the things we take for granted in this life. And it's made me like, understand myself a little more and like how I think and like, my way of being, and like it's changed me a whole lot more to be more compassionate and more kind to people. I might not always get it right on the mark, but like, it's made me a better person as a whole. Like, it's changed my life so much as a whole to make me this more thoughtful person and this more aware person and like just more open, I guess.
Right. Mm-hmm. And MOHAI, Museum of History and Industry here, was very intentional and in the video segment that we put together, that they wanted you there. You know what I'm saying? That your story was very important to capture. Now the full length is out now. You haven't seen it yet, right?
No.
Just was released late last night or this morning, so we'll make sure and show that to you. But the short version you have seen. Tell us how you felt seeing, because a lot of times when you saw yourself on video, it was other people's video, and a lot of times it was other media, there was whatever. How did you feel sitting there seeing yourself talk to Enrique Cerna here in the MOHAI?
it was breathtaking, man. Like, I'm still at a loss for words. It's emotional. Like, I'm trying to keep it together a little bit, you know? It's emotional and it's breathtaking because, like, as humble as I am, I'm not gonna lie, y'all, we deserve this right here. Mm. But at the same time, it's just like, coming from the background I come from and the things I've been through in my life, to be here and to culminate it and to be in this space, I don't, like, it's crazy to me, bro. I still can't believe it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like, you know, my mama's real proud right now. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, I'm thankful and I'm real grateful for it because, like I said, man, you told me a year or 2 years ago, like, oh, come this time, whatever, you're going to make this huge impact on people. You're going to inspire a lot of people. You're going to do this, you're going to do this, and then you're going to be here. I'd have laughed at you and told you it was crazy because I ain't that type. But here I am sitting here that type. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, I'm blessed, man. I'm very blessed to be here, bro. And it's just like, I still can't believe it. It still ain't hit me sitting here right now. Like, I got here this morning, was looking around like, am I really here? Like, somebody pinch me and make sure I'm awake for real, for real. It's just like, man, it's life-changing for me, for real, for real.
Well, you know what? You just said it. You know, as we stay humble in this and in our walk, you really are living in your purpose now. And, you know, I can understand how the emotional wave takes on itself because we've talked about this. You was like, I didn't see myself as no leader. I was just out there doing what I thought I needed to do. But again, you know, hearing from so many people about how they appreciated you taking that mantle of leadership as you just stepped up to the plate, TK. Like, at the right time, you just stepped up to the plate. And what are some of the stories that really, like, sat with you as you were really out there leading hundreds and thousands of people to be able to be active in what we're talking about here by changing democracy, changing the way that people experience the democracy and experience them utilizing their voices like that?
Honestly, for me, it was the kids. It was the kids, bro, because I have younger siblings too. And, you know, I want them to grow up and live prosperous lives. I don't want them to grow up and worry about if they get stopped by the police, if they're going to live or die. Yeah. I don't want that. You know, and so it was coming out here, going on these, doing marches and seeing all these kids come out and just looking like, what's going on? And I figured, their parents can explain it to them, but I think I can explain it a little bit better. So, like, going out on the marches and seeing all these kids, my main focus was to get to these kids and understand, so they would understand, especially kids that are black, brown, and indigenous, for those kids to understand that, hey, there's people that look like y'all out here fighting for y'all, whether you know them or not. And so for me, it's about the kids for me, because us adults, we've been through this. You know, we kind of at that age where, like, all right, it ain't really too much. It's going to affect us, but it's not really for us. It's for the generations after us to prosper, just like our ancestors did it for us. So we have to do it for the next generations. And then it's going to be on them to take up that mantle and do it for the generations after them. Because at the end of the day, black, brown, and indigenous communities have been given nothing but generational trauma at the end of the day. Why can't we give generational knowledge to them, generational wealth, generational inspiration, something that benefits their lives after we are gone? You know what I'm saying? And that was my way of thinking. It was like, I don't want to change nothing. I don't want to be like, you know, I just want to inspire other people to do something, because somebody inspired me to do something, you know? So if somebody can inspire me, I should inspire somebody else. Nipsey Hussle said the greatest currency you can give somebody is inspiration. Yeah. So I might not give you the money. I can't give you the money, all the money in the world, but I can give you some inspiration, you know? And so that was just my way of thinking. It was for these kids. So these kids have an example of what they can do and be the people that they aspire to be.
Wow. Right. We're up against it. I think we're already in overtime, but we're in overtime for a good reason today. Yes. You know what I'm saying? And luckily we got the best crew in the business, so they're not looking at their clock. But two last things here is, one, why should people come and visit the Stand Up Seattle exhibit?
Honestly, come see it for yourself. We can all sit here and tell you what it's like and how great it is and how much knowledge is really up there. But until you come experience it for yourself like I did when I first came here, it's breathtaking, man. You learn so much. Like, I learned the whole process of how things really work, and like legislated and seeing like the different history. Like we walked past a chair that legislators used to sit in, and they ain't these comfy chairs that they have now. They're like, you know, your old grandma wicker chair sitting in the front on the front porch type chairs. And I would have never known that had I not came here. Like there's so much I don't know that I've learned here. Like it's crazy. It's really crazy. And it's like, I can tell you what it's like. They can tell you what it's like. Come see it for yourself though, because you'll learn so much. There's so much knowledge here to take away and be confident in the fact that, you know what, I really can do something. I can stand up and we can do this. Because at the end of the day, this city has a long history. Like always is long history of standing up. Come see how you really stand up. Come see the real history of how this city has really stood up for itself. And then take that and see what you can do to stand up, to keep that standing up going.
Right. Last thing here, you know, it's a bit sobering, but it's real, is in just a few days, it'll be the 1 year anniversary where me, you, a lot of people, the everyday march was sitting there on I-5. And I remember that night that I had the night off and happened to be walking home and I saw you guys on I-5. I was like, nah, I'm not going to live stream, but I was out there live taking pictures and tweeting. Guys had just got done doing the cha-cha slide. And then a car came through and struck Diaz Love and Summer Taylor. And Summer Taylor died that day there on I-5. It's 1 year. And I'll throw this out there. It's summer season.
All year, for sure, for the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, man, like you said, it's somber and it's tragic. You know, there's a vigil going on the 4th for that, you know. Me, personally, I don't even know what my thought process is going to be like that day or what, like, you know, what type of headspace I'm going to be in, but you know, definitely come out to the visual, go support, you know what I'm saying? And show up and be there, like, because like you said, man, we went through some stuff, man. That was a tragic event, and it's just like, it's crazy, man, because we experienced that together, and it's just like, we went through so much together. It's like, dang, man. Oh, my bad, guys.
No. It's just real.
It's just real, you know.
It's just real. You know, and thank you, you know, to be honest, that's what I wanted to say.
One thing, though, I do want to give a shout out to Dahlia Taylor, Summer Taylor's mom, you know, and, you know, I always be a good friend to her, and I'll always be there, same for Diaz, you know, and it's just like, that really hurt, bro, you know, and it's just, it's a messed up thing, and, you know, I encourage everybody, like I said, to go to the vigil and just, it's so emotional and just be there for people who went through that. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's gonna make the biggest difference. It being there for those who had to physically experience that. Even the people who are going through it with people who were there, you know? Just check on your people that were there that day, you know what I'm saying? Because this is becoming a tough time for us, and it's like the closer it gets, the harder it gets for us. So like, just check on your peoples, you know? And make sure they're good, and you know, even if they ain't good, see what you can do to just be there for them until they are good, you know what I'm saying? Because ain't nobody ever going to be right from this. But we still can live on and, like, you know, push forward in some way, somehow. Never forgetting what happened, but still pushing forward, you know?
Right. What's the details for the vigil before we let you go?
Let me see.
If you got any.
You guys want to stay here, but go ahead. You got the details?
Yeah, if you got any of the details. Because we just want to make sure that people can really hear that. I know I was going to be asking after, but if people can know, you know, how to support, how to show up, that's such a vital part of everything you're saying. Absolutely.
So it's going to be at the Seattle Public Theater at 7 p.m. on the 4th. So, you know, show up, man. Show up and support. Bring candles, bring flowers, you know, whatever. You show up and support those people and support the people, support everybody, you know. Keep your hands on people, man, because that's going to be a hard day for a lot of us.
All right. Well,
They always say we can't leave in the show and leaving people affected. So we're going to, Director, we're going to take a quick merch break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to get upbeat here. You're watching the Morning Update Show. All right, back here, morning update show here from MOHAI. You know, we had to end this show today with a lot of positivity. We opened the set here. We have some guests that have come in here. We also got the team from MOHAI. And, I mean, what a great experience, though. Huh? It's an emotional experience today, but what a great experience, right?
Hey, man, it's I can count this as definitely one of the greatest days of my life, for sure.
Oh,
Man.
You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Yes.
That's fantastic. We're super overtime. There's actually another production coming in, so we want to respect that. Want to say thank you to the Museum of History and Industry. We want to say thank you to Dr. Bhatt. Thank you to Isabelle Heyward and to Director Garfield, and of course to UTK.
Absolutely.
And some of these guys you can't see. The ones that you can, are you gonna get in here? You too cool. This is the newest edition back on the Morning Update Show. It's my son Omi right there. I gotta give a big shout out to our crew. Our amazing crew here who show up and show out everywhere across the city, and they make it happen. And I want to say thank you to you guys. Thank you to our amazing director, Olia D'Alessandro. On that note, oh, I forgot. Any last words, Trey?
Last words. You know, we got to say it here at MOHAI, y'all. You know, clearly everybody that you see here is seeing themselves as a part of the solution. What we heard today is that it takes all of us to make democracy move forward. It is in constant progress because of us wielding our voices, our energy, our time, talent, and treasure to bring it to bear. So I encourage all of you every single day, find a way to be a part of the solution.
All right, good stuff. Man, I don't have much to say. I think we said it all here. So we'll do this. Go forward in your purpose. Go forward in your humanity. And until tomorrow at 11 a.m., back in our hot studio. Peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day.